Mic check 1 2.
Okay.
Mic check 1 2.
Sounds great. Up in that rubber thing. Sweet. Känner kända. Både kanske rent och kanske do we want that. So we hacked the plan, top on Santa. People come and only get the better Santa. So it's kill to the clinic. Pure cat, fuck all else in it. Skill and character, we only have a minute. Then the liberty thing it, bring it up. Back to the fourth room. But before we leave it for the walk home. 2 cars come in the ballroom. Gonna be a motherfucking on no. Fight them and allow Móglaí. Come back and they just do me. They're going next slowly. The members got for sure.
Right, Kneecap, it's so dope to see you guys here in Poland. Yeah, and if you could quickly introduce yourselves to all the people that might still not be too familiar with your music, how would you say, what values do you stand for, what do you represent in your art?
I'm Chara.
I'm Móglaí Bap.
And we're Kneecap.
Belfast,
we're from
Ireland.
Belfast, from Ireland. And we believe in the liberation of Ireland as long as it is in the Irish language.
We like to blend everyday politics, international solidarity with youth culture and ketamine.
Perfect.
And I wanted to congratulate you on the new album Fenian, which is getting great reviews. And one review that I found that I liked exceptionally was a 5-star review on Rate Your Music, where someone wrote about the album that it's a stellar mix of pure rage with love, humanity and home. So how do you feel about it, and how would you describe the project in your own words if you were to kind of review it?
I think that's pretty on the nose. I think it's a lot more mature. It's a lot more serious. I think the first album, obviously, it was our first album. We were a bit younger. Obviously, it was a lot. We were partying, and that was the kind of moment that we captured. But now, obviously, things have changed. Obviously, we're a lot busier. Obviously, things have changed politically in the world, and I think it was only natural that whenever we were expressing ourselves creatively, that it took a more dark kind of turn. That was also the influence from Dan Curry, who we obviously owe a great deal to for the amount of work that he put in to the album. And I think, it was a much more mature album, and I think it kind of solidified us as a serious group rather than just a parody token Irish language group.
Right, and you already mentioned it, it's one of the most unique things about your music is that you're mixing and intertwining the English and Irish, which is it's kind of unheard of before, because we had a lot of people coming from Ireland, but they weren't really choosing to do that. So what for you is the most fun aspect, and what is the biggest challenge in kind of trying to balance it out with all those different rhyme schemes, cadences, while still trying to tell stories in the songs?
Yeah, I think the funnest thing definitely is that the Irish language, like any kind of ancient language, it has a lot of different sounds, a lot of different words, a lot of guttural sounds, I think, which work very well in a hip-hop track. Like when you listen to Arabic and stuff, I think it sounds really good in hip-hop. So I think that's the fun part. The challenging part, what's the challenging part? Getting up in the morning.
I think what he said. I think if you run out of rhymes in one language, you can switch over to the other language. So it's kind of like a cheat code that nobody knows about. But I think people are starting to go that direction. We're seeing a lot more music, I think, in the world, especially in America, and blending Spanish and English, etc. I think the way we consume music is changing. So then people are changing the way they produce music. People aren't as shy to use their own language, native languages. There's Korean K-pop bands that play in England, and not everybody understands that. I think we're coming to an understanding that you don't have to understand music to enjoy it. I think that's the reason we're here, because nobody knows what the fuck we're saying. Not only in Poland, but in Ireland also. But I think it carries a certain energy and a certain attitude that resonates with people.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's just contagious. You might not understand everything, but you can feel the energy, and I think that's why people are gravitating towards it. And a lot of the interviews, like from those that I've watched, they focus on the politics, but I wanted to focus on the music and the hip hop culture, and like how deeply immersed were you in the hip hop culture, like coming up, and what does hip hop mean to you, and like do you have any fondest memories from just coming up on the scene?
I think obviously there was like a thing in Ireland. Obviously, we weren't really part of a hip hop scene. We never really grew up in a hip hop scene. I think there was always kind of a small, tiny, maybe like not very organised kind of underground scene in any city that you go to, but it wasn't really something that we grew up with. Obviously, we grew up at a time of like, you know, Eminem and all these kind of like new breakthrough artists that were coming through, where hip hop was becoming really mainstream. Obviously, like obviously Biggie and all those kind of lads, and NWA and stuff was a big thing as well for us. But we grew up with rebel music was our big thing, which is you see Blind Boy Boat Club from the Rubber Bandits talking about it, that the correlations between rebel music in Ireland and the hip hop scene in America are very, very similar. Obviously completely different cultures, but it's all like, come out you black and tans, come out and fight me like a man. Like, this is rebel music in Ireland. It's the same, it follows the same structure as hip hop, while also being extremely anti-authority. Rebel music was also basically from the people, like hip hop, and it was a way for the people to tell their story that wasn't being represented in the media or on TV and stuff. So it has a lot of similarities, and that was the kind of attitude that we grew up with, which obviously once we decided that we wanted to create an extension basically of rebel music through hip hop, then that was kind of the natural progress we went down that road.
Yeah, I think that, like, personally, that's why hip hop resonated, I suppose, with me a lot, was how identity was like at its core and like a representation of the people. And I think growing up speaking Irish in Belfast is quite a new thing. You feel like the language was rarely heard in contemporary spaces or seen. Like you wouldn't really hear contemporary Irish language music on the radio or or go to the cinema and watch a movie. And I thought, you know, that's what resonated with hip hop. Hip hop gives you this opportunity, this avenue to express that identity and to let people know that we exist, that we speak Irish, and that there's a resistance there to let it go. And that's kind of why we gravitated towards hip hop naturally. And also obviously growing up on Eminem and then the Rubber Bandits, etc. There's been a lot of influences on us. Mm-hmm.
And I read also that one of the inspirations from the American scene was Wu-Tang Clan for you, and we know Wu-Tang is forever. So what did you take from Wu-Tang specifically, or what did you learn from them while studying their music and then kind of also developing your own style?
Yeah, Wu-Tang was obviously just always something that was there. It wasn't something that I followed really. It wasn't something I could really even comment on. I think it's something that people compare a lot us to. It's the same as we could compare to the Beastie Boys or that and all these kind of stuff. Like, it's a lot of artists that I never really listened to, but surely, and it being in any kind of conversation beside the Wu-Tang is obviously an absolute compliment in whatever way it is. But it wasn't something that I really studied Wu-Tang or whatever. As I said, the main thing for me when I was younger, I loved Immortal Technique and that kind of side of it. But for me, like, rebel music was our big influence, and yeah, pretty much, yeah, and that's it. That's
I love that. Dead Prez. I mean, Wu-Tang obviously, but Dead Prez, they had that song, Hell Yeah, was it?
Hell Yeah, it was their big one. Yeah.
As again, they were blending this absurd reality of like kind of humor in their own reality, trying to depict their environment by using humor, and that's something that really resonated with us. I think being Irish, there's a certain way that we do hip hop that, you know, that we have to be a bit self-deprecating. That's in our nature, and kind of that humour is very important for us to express ourselves. So Dead Prez in that regard was a big influence.
And recently you dropped, I think, your first big like American hip hop collab with Killer Mike, Smugglers and Scholars remix. So what is the story behind this track, and what was that experience like of, you know, crossing mics with Killer Mike?
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible. Like, Killer Mike is such an influential name. It's such a huge name, obviously, to be associated with. Obviously, we've been in touch with LP, the other member, for a long time, like, and we've tried to work out, like, our schedules have just never worked out that we could get in the studio together with LP, but we knew that himself and Killer Mike were obviously kind of following us or maybe even fans, but we're definitely following our progression. And it's obviously just mind blowing that, like, you know, like a couple of years ago you wouldn't imagine you would ever be even close to being in a conversation with these people. So Smugglers and Scholars obviously is about, you know, people's perception of Ireland and the Ireland that we grew up in Belfast in particular, about resistance against the British Army, and, you know, that they say that Ireland is the land of saints and scholars, while also the stereotype of Ireland is that everyone's stupid, but somehow everyone is a saint and a scholar as well. It's like, it was just these kind of absurdities, so we just wanted to play up on that. And Killer Mike obviously slotted in perfectly.
I think it's like we had Killer Mike obviously, but then we had Fawzi from the West Bank on Palestine. And I think when, like, you're in this, doing the type of music we do, it's important that we find like-minded artists to do collaborations with, to kind of build that solidarity. And a way to build that solidarity is working together. And Killer Mike, especially with Fawzi, being in the West Bank, I thought just all the events that happened in Palestine, that was very important for us to build bridges that we can actually work together and do something proactive. And that's something that we want to build off, like hopefully work with other artists from indigenous cultures or all around the world, and native cultures, and something that we could build on to try and work together.
So is there some like dream collab that you have in mind, like some one goal where you could pick anybody and work with them? Who would it be?
We get asked this all the time, and every time I drop blank.
Dead or alive?
I'll go for the Stone Roses.
Well, that'll be a funky one.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go for the Stone Roses. I reckon I could work.
I can work. I'm gonna go. Oh.
Are you going hip hop or
Me?
Yeah.
Although I haven't thought about it
nice time?
yet. Let me have a think.
We'll be right back.
We'll be right back. I'm gonna go rubber bandits.
Nice, there you
Let's
go.
bring them back together. Get the boys back together. Hashtag.
Let's get the Rubber Bandits back together, and let's get Christy Moore back on the sauce.
All right, and
That's a joke, Christy.
2 years ago you released Fine Art, and two of my favorite songs from this album were Better Way to Live and Way Too Much. So
Way too much? Fucking hell. Whoa.
Were those two special for you as well?
No,
I mean, Better Way to Live is definitely special.
Way Too Much is a very rare one that we hear people say.
I like Way Too Much.
I forget it. I haven't heard it from it came out.
It's I know we've never played it. Maybe one day. Underrated. Better Way to Live definitely was a good moment for us, because we cornered Green in the pub one day in Belfast and forced them to agree to a collaboration.
It was a blood contract. We drew blood.
That was like a year before we went to the studio. So, and Green he's a busy man. He's a busy man.
Busy man.
So it's hard to get a hold of him. So we finally got a hold of him, got him to the studio, and it happens just in time. So it was definitely a nice moment for us. And also we were friends as well. So like, when you get to go to the studio with your friends, you get to go to the pub after when you finish a song. So that's always nice.
It's like a treat.
Nice. And the same year you also released your movie, Kneecap, which was your acting debut. And I have a couple of questions from the Reddit community of Kneecap. People wanted to know, what was the favorite part of filming that movie for you?
Favorite part?
I mean,
I loved make any food.
I loved the interrogation scenes where I'm being interrogated by the police. I think that was my favorite. I think that was the first scene we ever practiced whenever we were learning how to act, or we're doing acting lessons and stuff. I think that was the first one we ever did. So it was the first. I think what it was the first scene that I ever learned, because I had to learn it for acting lessons. So whenever the day came to actually film it, I knew it inside out. So I was a lot more comfortable. I was able to play around with it a bit more. So I think that was the one that I enjoyed most.
I like that at the end of the movie we got to keep all the clothes we were wearing. So I thought that was fun.
All right, and another question from Reddit fan group. What do you miss most about Belfast or Derry when you're on tour?
Same time, ready? 1, 2, 3.
The Hawthorn. Close enough. The pub. Our local pub. Our local pub is what we miss the most. Obviously, our families, they travel, they come see us on tour and stuff,
families.
but they can't.
But you can't drink.
The Hawthorn can't come on tour with us. Our families can come and meet us when we're on tour. Unfortunately, the bar stays where it is.
All right, and one more from the group. If Fenian was an ice cream, what flavor would it be?
If it was a what?
Ice cream.
An ice cream.
I think it would be like a mix of
Mint.
kind of floury potato mixed with explosive Semtex with a Guinness head.
It's for your country.
Nice. And a last question from me. How would you finish this sentence like in a different way that Nas did? If I ruled the world?
I would sleep.
I would give everyone free beer tokens and then go to sleep.
No. So do you have any last words for the fans in Poland and fans worldwide that are watching this?
Keta, pros.
Get that brushed.
Pros, keta.
How do you say open up the pit?
That's going to be tough.
In Polish? That's going to be tough. Otwórzcie.
Open? What is open?
Open the pit.
Otwórzcie pogo.
Otwórzcie pogo? Otwórzcie pogo? Pogo. Otwórzcie pogo.
That's what we gotta
say. Is that
say.
right? Otwórzcie pogo?
I'm gonna say that on
Is
stage.
that right?
I'm gonna practice this. Otwórzcie pogo. Close enough.
Otwórzcie pogo. Oh, don't be confusing us now with an extra one. Otwórzcie pogo.
Otwórzcie pogo.
Is this right?
Polski.
Otwórzcie pogo.
Dziękuję.
Otwórzcie pogo.
No, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. Jake.
Lovely.
And let's take a pic as well
Yes,
for
man,
the thumbnail.
Sitting down, pick.
Yeah.
Sitting here?
Act natural.
In your chest, now your knees at your head. You can beg, you can plead, you can pass what you need, you can cheat. But you're all a fucking shit! Okay, now! One more time! Oh my God! I'm a hit, the whole thing. No less, so much what they say about me. 'Cause I'm a hit, the whole thing. No less, so much what they say about me. I'm a hit, the whole thing. No less, so much what they say about me.
No, thanks so much.
Dank
Much
u.
appreciated.
See you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.